that's really all that the Lord expects of us, is to just do your best and love other people, and you are just as needed as everybody else who is there.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
And if you feel weird about something, chances are everybody else does too.
That is
like we're all kind of just like faking it.
Yeah, that is true.
Like we all look like we have our lives together.
Yep.
But
who does?
Hey guys, welcome to Saints Unscripted. I'm Caleb.
I'm Caitlin.
I'm Alex.
Basically, we just wanted to talk into like why going to church is so important. Especially during COVID, we were out of church for it was forever.
Mm-hmm.
But like we still had like online church with Zoom, and like I remember I had meetings like with my bishopric and stuff on Zoom when I was still a young man. So we would have quorum meetings on Zoom, and everything was just at home, everything and all that. But it's super important to actually be physically in the church building, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, I was told one thing which really stood out. It was that church isn't a place just for the people who are well. It's also a hospital for the sick, and you go to church to get better. It's like a hospital. You don't go to hospital just because you're okay. You go because you want to work on something, or you need to fix something, like all that stuff.
I love that.
Yeah, that's huge. Like being in church.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like saying like if you don't want to go to church because there's like hypocrites, that's like saying you don't want to go to the gym because there's like unhealthy people there. You know, like
yeah.
Oh yeah,
like,
totally.
It's such a huge, wonderful thing to be able to do. And during the pandemic, like you said, like it's been, we've had a lot more opportunities, I guess you could say. Mm-hmm. It's pretty easy to be like, I'm just going to watch Sacrament from Zoom today.
Yep.
I'm going to stay in my jammies, and it's ever so tempting, And not to say that like there are definitely a lot of situations where people need to stay home. For good reasons. That's not to like dog on anyone who's staying home.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
It's also like a huge blessing to be able to physically go to church.
Yeah.
And we'll kind of talk about some of those reasons today.
Yeah. I think it is important to touch on that it is a blessing that we live in a day and age where we have the technology to, if you are not able to go to church for any reason, you're able to attend online, which is an amazing blessing that we haven't always had. And so I definitely want to say that it is wonderful that we are able to do that. And so I don't want to, just downplay like, don't ever do it online ever again, because there are reasons to do that. But I think today we just really want to focus on if you can physically go to church, and if you're willing to, there are so many blessings with doing that as well.
One reason is, it's kind of a like commandment to worship God.
kind of one of those little things in there.
Like a little big thing here or there.
It's not a big deal.
It's like somewhat important. And a huge way you worship God is like going to church to do so. That's included, Sunday worship. It's why we call it that.
Yeah.
That's definitely one of the biggest reasons.
Yeah.
And also like there's something about going there, like, I don't know. It sets your day apart. Like being able to go somewhere physically, and it kind of puts you in a mindset to think about, like when you're in the house of the Lord, obviously you think more about the Lord. You think more about Jesus Christ. And then they talk about in the scriptures in the Book of Mormon, they communed, they gathered and they fasted and prayed together. And it was, edifying as a body of the church for them.
Yeah. And I think it's definitely something that, at least when I go physically to the church, like you said, as tempting as it may be to just stay home and watch it, because there's no correct way to worship him, and there's no like, you're doing this right or you're doing this wrong. But for me, I feel closer to him, and I feel like I am able to go to church physically, and I'm willing to do that, and so I'm going to, and I feel like that was worth it. I'm really glad that I was able to do this and connect to him, because there's just something so different about being there and singing the songs and hearing the speakers in person and talking with others and just being that family and community as a ward again, and just you know what I mean. So
I feel like church is like a place just to get away from the outside world also.
yeah.
Like it's a break. Because I went to church last week, and like it was just nice because I didn't have to worry about the outside stresses, like worldly stresses, like work or school or whatever. I could just focus on God, my relationship with Him,
Yeah.
talk with like-minded people, and just relax, like breathe for once.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good time to like really meditate. And a big part of that is the chance to do that when you take the sacrament.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
You know, you're renewing your covenants with Heavenly Father every week. Like it's a cleansing experience. It's such a blessing and such a huge thing to be able to do. Like I remember my husband has been a really good example to me in that aspect, because like he values the sacrament so much. And like we've even been on road trips, and like where we've had to drive on a Sunday or whatever. And he's like, let's find like last time I think we were coming, I don't even remember where we were coming from, but we were driving through St. George, and he was like, let's find a church building so we can just go take the sacrament.
Oh,
And I was
awesome.
like, really? And I was like, okay. And I'm like looking up, like trying to find a church building, and there was one right on time, like right off the road for us.
Wow.
And we went in and took the sacrament. And I was kind of like, in the moment, I was like, okay, like we can go take it. But like, I was so glad that we did. And that example to me of like how much he valued that ordinance was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and you can you can do it at home too with permission from the bishop, like if you have circumstances. And we did it for a while in the pandemic.
Oh, right.
But definitely where that mainly happens is in the church building. So it's a big one.
For sure.
I know there's a big one for people when it comes to going to church, is sometimes like the social aspect kind of affects how people feel about being in church, whether that's like a little bit of social anxiety, or whether they feel like they don't fit in at church, you know, or they don't feel like people are reaching out to them. Like how do we approach that for people? You know,
That's a really good question.
Yeah. I don't really know exactly, but I know if, like, for example, I just moved into a new singles ward. And yes, like I said, I went to church last week, and it was my first time in this ward. And so, like, I'm just gonna be like an antisocial butterfly, just sit in the back of like the chapel and just do my own stuff, like just pay attention to whatever. But people came up to me and like introduced themselves, like, "Hey, I'm so and so. You're new to the ward." The bishopric came up to me, and like it's weird when I say you stick out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
But it's like for the better reasons,
Mm-hmm.
because people are like, "Oh, I've never seen this person before. Let's go talk to them." Like maybe they're investigating, or they're new to the ward, or they haven't been here for such a while, and
Yeah.
let's just make sure they feel welcome. Like, I think that's a good thing that our church especially does, is making us feel welcome.
Yeah.
Like we're just so inviting.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's super nice. Like it warmed my heart just to know that
Yeah.
I
That
was
people
accepted.
noticed.
Yeah.
And yeah, totally.
That's really
I will
cool.
say on the other side, with my personal experience, at least in my ward, we have a lot of turnover. And so it is so hard to keep up with who's new and who's not. But it also doesn't hurt to, and this might be uncomfortable, but if you are new, you can also go and talk to other people, because what we tell people in our ward is, if you are new, chances are pretty much everybody else here is new as well. And because we have like such a high turnover rate. And so we're like, don't wait for somebody to come to you, because chances are that's what everybody else is waiting for as well. And so it doesn't hurt to, like I said, might be a little uncomfortable, but it doesn't hurt to also be the one to go and introduce yourself to somebody as well.
Yeah. A big part of going to church is like the active, you know, helping others feel welcome, helping others feel love. President O's kind of touched on this when he spoke in General Conference. He talked about, you know, you can go to church to bless others.
Yeah.
And I haven't, you know, sometimes that's not something that I think about personally. Like, I'm going to church to, like, you know, take the sacrament and work on my relationship with Jesus Christ.
Yep.
And I know I should be better. And sometimes I'm pretty good about it. But, sometimes I'm just kind of in my own little world.
Mhm.
And, the church, we meet together so that we can edify one another.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's good to remind ourselves of that. Even if like it's awkward in the moment and you really don't feel like talking to people,
Mm-hmm.
it's
You never know who that could bless.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Could make all the difference for somebody. One thing I like that Paul talks about this in the Bible in 1 Corinthians, he kind of compares all of us to like a body. Like some of us might be the hands, some of us might be the eyes, but like the hands can't be the eyes. Like they're all different functions, different things that contribute to the same body is basically what he says. And even though the eyes are really small, they're super needed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Even though like you have fingernails, like maybe they don't seem like a big deal, but they are.
Mm-hmm.
And they all have different functions. And I like that he compares us to that. Because you have different kinds of people with different backgrounds and experiences gathering together, and you can, like, it just makes something beautiful.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's very important to remember that we all have something to share, and you may not feel like it, because sometimes I feel like I don't have anything to give, you know what I mean? But it's like, I think that just being there and just doing your best right there is enough. And that's really all that the Lord expects of us, is to just do your best and love other people, and you are just as needed as everybody else who is there.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
And if you feel weird about something, chances are everybody else does too.
That is
like we're all kind of just like faking it.
Yeah, that is true.
Like we all look like we have our lives together.
Yep.
But
who does? Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, we kind of talked about it briefly, but again, like we are still kind of in the middle of a pandemic. End of it. Who knows? It might kickstart again.
We don't even know
Please
anymore.
no. Like it's been so long.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you don't feel comfortable going to church, like that's still completely fine. Like I remember during the start of the pandemic, like we talked briefly, we were able to take the sacrament in the homes, and if you're still like uncomfortable with like you had like a sickness or you just aren't able to go to church, you can always reach out to the priesthood or like the young men's or whoever, and we can always give you the sacrament. Or like there's ways to still get the blessings without actually being in church. But it's just church is just so fun. It's so good. So
absolutely.
So yeah, that's like I don't know. That's just my thoughts on this whole craziness that the 2 years have been involving church. And if you guys have any like questions or comments about your stance on like going to church right now, feel free to comment down below. Like we'd love to hear your opinions. But thanks for listening, guys, and we'll catch you next time.
Yeah. Like, subscribe, comment.
Woohoo!
Bye, guys.